Hello and welcome to a special bonus talk edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia here on LaSalle TV. I'm your host, Josh Abrams, alongside Selena B-Mac, Sam Brown, and Tyler Small. We are starting off this bonus talk talking about the Philadelphia Flyers and probably perhaps the most struggling team out of the three active Philly sports right now. Let's start off with just our general opinion of the Flyers so far, and I'll leave it open to you guys.
The Flyers are nothing short of a disappointment. No one expected them to be a super great team this season, I don't think, but compared to how other things are going in Philly sports, they're like second to last in the division. They're 11-12-2. They just haven't been what we've expected. And obviously they've been plagued by injuries throughout the season, but still, there's no excuses.
Yeah, and as far as expectations go, I didn't expect anything. I didn't expect them to be stellar at the top of the standings. I didn't expect them to be in the cellar where they are, but it's just not been a great season thus far. They are under 500, which is not acceptable at all, and they're kind of making some good progress by cleaning house a little bit, but I'd like to see more.
Yeah, I was just going to point that out. Cleaning house is definitely, hopefully, going to get them back on track, because just a couple weeks ago we were talking about the hot streak that they were on and how it looked like things were going up. They were raising in the Metropolitan Division, but it's tough to expect a lot from a team that doesn't have a solid goalie, and we talk about it every week, but the goalie situation is their number one problem right now alongside everyone that's making the decisions for the team. So hopefully they can pick it up soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is just, it's kind of like a roller coaster season. There's really no other way to describe it. As you said, Tyler, we were on such a hot streak at one point, and then all of a sudden we start blowing these leads to teams like Ottawa, and we get shut out at home by, Toronto, was it Tampa Bay? Yeah. Well, either way, we're playing respectable opponents, which is fine. Whatever. But to lose 6-0 in games like that and to just look like this, I think it's really going to put a lot of pressure on Hackstall and the guys that they just brought in, and I think that should be the next talking point. So, what do you guys think about the Flyers organization moving things around and finally making moves in the front office?
Well, I'm satisfied with the move they made in bringing in Chuck Fletcher. The man has good experience, having been the general manager in Minnesota for 9 years, and he made some very marquee moves over there, and hopefully he brings that expertise to. I'm very much looking forward to him bringing that expertise to the Flyers organization, and I'm looking forward to see how his plan works out.
I'm going to go from the opposite viewpoint. I'm actually going to be more excited to see what Wilson can do. I think that what the front office needs to do, any of the decisions they need to make, are pretty much done. We have the team that we need, besides Elliott, as long as he can figure it out. That could be our serious goaltender, but our offensive numbers have been great this season. So the fact that these third period collapses have happened is because of a lack of coaching, a lack of sound-mindedness in the defense, and that just needs to be taught, and a new assistant coach could only benefit it as long as he works out with his game plan.
I would agree with your comments on coaching. I would also say I was a little surprised that it was Hextall who was fired initially and not Hackstall. Yeah. I didn't expect that move to come first. I thought both of them would have been removed from their positions, but still, I thought it was an interesting take from the Flyers organization.
And it's Hackstall's last straw. This means it's his last chance to finally get it right, because everyone else around him's gone.
And it really stinks to say that, because he's only in his fourth year now.
Yeah.
But like we said on the last time we talked about the Flyers, this team just isn't. It's stayed the same. Mm-hmm. And when you barely make it to the playoffs, you sneak in as an 8 seed in the 2 years that Hackstall's been there, you only win 4 games. And as a matter of fact, the last time we played in the playoffs, we didn't win a single home game.
Yeah.
That's just being materialistic, but that kind of still points at the fact that nothing has really been changed around on this team. Let's talk about there's a lot of low points on the team, but we got to talk about, as Tyler brought up, our offensive numbers, and that is very much due in part to our veterans like Claude Giroux and Sean Couturier, Jake Voracek, who isn't on there, Wayne Simmons, who's been banged up here and there, but try your best, I guess, to talk about the positives.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, I think Sean Couturier has actually really been having a great year that we might not have necessarily expected out of him at this point. I guess some of you would. He has been performing really well on that that first line, but a lot of that has to do with Claude Giroux being right there. I think Claude Giroux has like 21 assists, so that can speak for itself.
Yeah, going off what Selena said, if they're not getting leadership on the bench, they're getting it on the ice, and Claude Giroux is doing his job, and he needs to keep it up. And
it has just been a plethora of guys. I mean, you have 9 players on the team with double-digit point totals. So it really has been everyone, but it's been led by Giroux's 21 assists on the season, which is just unreal for him. Even more assists than he's usually worth according to his 9 goals. So I think the veteran presence has been huge.
Making chances for his teammates is what's the biggest catalyst, I feel, for the offensive production.
And I don't think anybody else is really surprised that we're seeing this, because especially with someone like Giroux, who's still, I guess with the exception of Van Riemsdyk now that he's back, the only guy still remaining from that Stanley Cup team. Yeah. He's just done it all for us ever since, and we can't ask much more from him. But we got to talk about the young guys too, and we can talk about Nolan Patrick, we can talk about Oscar Lindblom and how much they've struggled, and as much as I would like to focus on those guys, and you guys can talk about obviously whatever, I'm still kind of more concerned about our defensive play, because I really would like to think that these 3-goal, 4-goal games that our goalies are giving up, half of them cannot be all their fault.
Not at all. No, it's just been sloppy play in the back. And that also comes down to the coaching schemes. That also there's no any anticipation for the defense. There's nothing that's really on their shoulders for it. But as you see from these young guys, on the offensive end, another guy that's been good is McDonald, who had 3 assists against the Penguins. So I mean, it just again comes down to coaching more than just the youth of them.
I mean, yeah, you'd like to see more out of Provorov and Gustav Spear, and maybe bringing Rick Wilson in as their new assistant coach. You'll actually see that, but they can't penalty kill. They can't kill any penalties.
Their penalty kill has been horrendous, and so is their power play. They're not getting it done when they have the man advantage, and that's detrimental to a team that's really trying to win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially for a team that commits so many penalties on the defensive end, because they're always getting beat down the ice on fast breaks. So yeah,
it's very frustrating. Looking ahead, guys, it's still an early season. Let's not get anything mixed up here. We're not in no way are we trying to panic right now. Obviously, things aren't really looking too great. But given that they're on a good amount of days rest, the last time they played was Saturday against Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, and they ended up winning 4-2. So that was anything but disappointing. But looking ahead, as you saw on the screen, the 10 of their next 14 games are on the road, and I think they're going on one of those West Coast road trips again. Yeah. And we know what happened last time we went on a West Coast road trip. We went about, I think it was 5-1-1, secured 10, 11 points. Do you see them doing that again, guys?
Oh, I think in this case, it's going to come down to the individual games that they play, because Winnipeg is picking pretty much right off where they left off. Buffalo's a nice surprise this year, I think they're leading their division. If not, they're in the top 3.
I think they're leading, yeah.
Yeah, and Calgary's been playing very well. So this is going to be a very tall task for a team that really needs to put some wins together in these next few weeks.
It honestly just all depends on the momentum of the game. If they get some scoring earlier, if they get control of the tempo of the game early, then the game's decided. It's pretty much theirs. But if they fall behind early, they really have struggled coming back in those games. That's why you see those 6-0 losses or those big deficits in their losses, but the close, narrow wins. So it just depends game by game, like you said.
Yeah, and it's just going to be interesting to see what happens. Any last thoughts on just anything Flyers before we end here?
I think where they're at right now, it's still early on enough in the season, and they're not that below 500 that they can still pick up some wins or even just some points if they go into overtime or shootouts, and they can pick themselves back up. They're in a really, really competitive division in the league, so they'll just have to step up their game from here on out.
No, I know I've asked before on recent shows, but do you guys, I know, Sam, you said the Devils you think were the biggest contenders in the Metro. Do you still feel that way?
Not at this time, because they're right there right down the bottom with the Flyers. But like we said with the Flyers, it's an early season, anything can happen. But I'm still excited to see what's going to happen from here on out between both teams and when they match up too.
Tyler?
No, I agree with your Devils point. They have been a disappointment along with the Flyers, but it really is a toss-up. And it just, again, once again, goes off of the momentum of each game and whoever they play and just trying to get into the playoffs on a hot streak.
Well, the Flyers are going to play a lot of games in between the next time we talk about them. We're going to have to pay a lot of attention and see how they do. We thank you once again for tuning in to this special Bonus Talk edition, and we will see you later.